Hi everyone, welcome to my next video. I've been thinking about that recent video I did about um, writing a memoir about being an estranged parent or being a parent of an estranged adult child, whichever way you want to look at it. And some of your comments made me realize there is more than one way to look at it. And I've received so many supportive comments, and I thank all of you. And I also need to thank all of you for sharing your own very difficult stories. And I just sensed so much more to them than what you included in your brief comments. And I know that there's so much more to each and every one of your stories. And some of the comments I received were not very nice. And I understood those too, because I could see where there are people who are angry for whatever reason or having issues in their own lives. And it made me think more about why I was writing this book, why I had decided. And I thought about the other two that I had written, I See the Elephant and the Horseshoe. And I even thought back, way, way back when I was in high school, because my favorite class was creative writing. And I just couldn't wait for my homework because I just love to write. But I never really asked myself why I love to write. I just knew I loved to write. And just today, I think it's occurred to me why I do and love to write, and why I wrote my other two books, and why I'm writing this one. And what I've come up with is that I believe that we all have a common interest in just understanding life, understanding our world, and understanding not only our own behavior, but the people around us in our lives as well. And we're just trying to make sense of it all. And many of us go through life never really making sense of most of it. And maybe that's why we read books, and maybe that's why writers write books. Because what I noticed was when I first started writing I See the Elephant, I knew what my story was, but by the time I finished writing it, the process of writing gave me even more insight than I thought I had when I started, and I hope that makes sense. And then when I wrote The Horseshoe, I knew I had a beautiful story with that one as well, but I wanted to share that beautiful experience with others. Now, here's another thought. When people write, especially writers like me who write about true life things, memoirs, I know what I'm trying to convey, but I don't know what the readers will take from it. And that's okay, because each reader is different. Each reader, like viewers on YouTube, we all have our own experiences, our own understanding of our world, our own questions, our own answers, everything. So I just find it incredibly fulfilling to give what I have, give what I know, not even knowing what someone else will get out of it. I just hope someone will. And so my reason for writing this memoir about my estrangement from my adult child, which I'm definitely, unassuredly sure of, is that it's permanent. And I will talk more about that. But her behavior so closely resembles my own mother's. And I spent my entire life trying to reconcile with my mother. And her behavior never changed. And I firmly believe that that's just who she was. And this is who my daughter is. And for whatever reason, she doesn't like me. She doesn't approve of me. And I don't meet her expectations. Now, that is not within my control. And it's not something that I can affect one way or the other. And so some of these comments that came in, I want to address a couple, because I'm really glad that the nasty people said what they said, because it gave me more to think about. And that was something along the lines of, gee, what did I do wrong for her to not want anything to do with me? And I think a lot of estranged parents are blamed. And perhaps people are so quick to blame because it's sort of a simple way to justify things and sort of put it in a box. Well, this person did that or must have done that, so that's why that probably happened. And that's fine. But for me, it's the deeper way to look at the world is to consider why someone doesn't want anything to do with someone, especially a parent. Now, you have abusive parents. I did. I understand that. But, and I will go back to this again, as I mentioned before, there is no excuse for abuse. So my reason for writing my book is the same reason why I wrote the other two. And that is to understand something that happened, to reveal my own experiences so that other people can perhaps take what I learned and what I did wrong, what I did right, what I figured out, what I didn't figure out, and see if that fits with something that they're trying to understand in their own life. Or validate perhaps what they feel already, or make them not feel so all alone, because all of your comments were just amazing to me, because I didn't realize there were so many other parents like me out there. And I thought I was the only one. I really did. Now, again, when I write my story, I was a mess when I married my daughter's father. He was not a man I should have married, but not being a confident person and a very insecure young girl, I chose someone who was not healthy for me. Well, when you do that, you don't lead a happy life and you continue to make bad choices, which is what I did. I stayed with an abusive man. Now, perhaps she learned from his behavior. I don't know. But that's one example of something that I will write about, which I will not draw a conclusion from, but I will put it out there as a possibility. Now, one thing I have not mentioned yet was that I was a stepmother also. This man had 2 daughters from a previous marriage. They were 3 and 5 years old, and my ex-husband spoiled them rotten. I remember every other weekend we would pick them up, and he would take them to the toy store, tell them they could buy whatever they wanted, and no matter how many toys they had, they weren't enough. My ex-husband did not care for them. I was the caregiver. I did the baths. I did the dinners. I did the shopping. I wiped the tears when they scraped their knees. I was the pretend mom. Where did that get me? Absolutely nowhere. Because I was the mother that set boundaries and set rules, and their father was the one that let them do whatever they wanted. So they grew up to resent me. Now, I probably am correct in assuming that since my daughter has become very close to my stepdaughters, they have had a lot of influence in finding fault with me. And so that does not make me a victim. That does not make me powerless. That makes me even more aware of the bad choices I made early on. Because when you meet someone who is not healthy for you, and you engage in a relationship and a role as a stepmother that is not in your best interest, and you continue with it anyway, my situation only was a train wreck. Now, my daughter identifies very well with my stepdaughters, and as far as I know, the last time I talked to her anyway. And their hatred of me is as equal as my daughter's. So, how often does that happen? I don't know. But being a stepmother for me was a no-win scenario because their father was a very, um, oh my gosh, I don't even know what the word for it is. They could do no wrong. They did not have to do anything respectful to me or um, honor my feelings at all, and they were encouraged to treat me as badly as he did. So I'm going to write about that also. And had I been more self-assured and had more self-esteem, I would never have even ever been with that man. So was I at fault? I don't know. Can I blame my parents? No, because I'll talk about my father's own abusive father. I believe my mother had her own mental limitations. I believe at the very least she had Asperger's. She probably was bipolar. Um, she could swing from one mood to the other, very controlling. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I had a lot of issues dealing with that growing up. So in this book, I want to reveal all of that, not as a justification for why I'm an estranged parent, but to reveal the generational mess that families can create. And when meshing with the wrong people, the wrong relationships, and the wrong husbands, only exacerbates a pre-existing low self-esteem existence, which is what I was. And I hope this all makes sense because I believe that as I write this, I'm going to become more and more aware of what I'm trying to convey to the reader, because that's what happened when I wrote I See the Elephant. Just the very act of writing, and I believe it's part of my self-conscious. Sometimes I just write without even thinking. The words just pour out. And I believe that's a lot of unsaid emotion from the past that just gets written down. And I think that's a beautiful thing because I want to share all that with anyone who can use it for their own betterment, if that's a word. Maybe I just made that up. And so for those of you who think I'm trying to justify why my daughter may be entitled to have treated me so badly, again, there is no excuse for abusive behavior. There is no excuse for her belittling me, ignoring me, making disparaging comments about me, and consistently finding fault with me and being negative. No. Does she have her own reasons? Of course she does. Is she right or wrong? I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think we just are all trying to figure out life. And that's why I'm writing my book. So please feel free to ask me questions. This is why I'm a writer. This is why I've always wanted to be a writer. And all my life, I never thought I really had anything worthwhile to say. And now that I have this channel, it has really, really impacted me greatly to know that some of what I say has meaning and that I can use what I've learned either by my mistakes or my successes to have value for someone else. And that's all it is. So in my book, I'm going to spill everything. The mess of my life, the things that I regret, the things that I don't regret, the heartaches that I may very well have put my daughter through by leaving her father, the things that I did when I went back to California to fight for custody, and I spent every penny, and I won. the things that I did right that I never really was appreciated for. And maybe that was too much to ask. Maybe being a parent, that's my job, just to do the best I can. But I always hoped that I would be appreciated. And now I know I never will be. So I I'm also writing this book for one more reason. And I encourage any of you to write about your own lives. And this is why. I wished my ancestors had written about their lives. I wished that they had written about their hopes and dreams, their relationships, how they felt about other people and other things. Um, I could have learned so much about myself through them, and probably about my own parents' behaviors by understanding my grandparents. And I think when we lose that ability to know our ancestors' pasts, the things that get passed down from generation to generation become lost. And so when we try to make sense of what went wrong may have started generations ago. My father was abusive. His father was very, very mean and cruel to him. And possibly my great grandfather was abusive to my grandfather. So who knows? But I think it's important for me to write this book so that possibly in future generations, my great great grandchildren might read about me and think, oh, that's why grandma was like that. Or that's why great grandfather was like that. Or that's why my mother might have been like that. And I think it will all help us understand the world and hopefully make it a better place. So I hope that makes sense. And no, I'm not justifying um, any lofty position of being a faultless parent. I'm certainly not. And I'm not justifying abuse either. I'm merely sharing my story with anyone who cares to be interested enough to read it, with the hopes that it either enlightens you, inspires you, and encourages you to find the peace the way I did, and to realize that the only things that we can change is what we can do for ourselves today. And we can do things today for ourselves. We don't have to wait until tomorrow. We can do it in the next 5 minutes. We can tell ourselves, you know what? This isn't easy. I'm not happy. I'm struggling. I'm still crying. But this is what I want to do. And I want to be happy. And I don't want any more pain. And that to me is the best starting point. So thank you so much, everyone. I so love my channel. And I just want to give value to anyone that I possibly can and share what I have encountered and what I have experienced. So it will take me all summer to write this. I am not going to leave anything out, and I will make it actually for 30 days. It will be absolutely free, and after that, I think I'll just price it at $2.99. I don't look for any revenue from it other than just maybe 50 cents a book, if that. So thank you again, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day, and feel free to ask me questions. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already to my channel, and I welcome all of your comments. Thanks, everyone. Take care.